What's up, guys? Welcome to the Outer Nexus. Tonight, we are going to be going over the most recent UFO whistleblower hearing by the House Oversight Committee. And this time, I think it was pretty good. This time was, in my opinion, pretty impactful. I know we have a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world right now, but we also have some pretty equally wild stuff happening in the UFO world right now. So let's check out this article we got over here. Military whistleblowers share new evidence of alleged UAP at transparency hearing. Tuesday marked the first UAP-focused hearing convened by the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee's Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets. And here we go. Here's a good picture of them all. There's Jeff Nuccetelli, Chief Alex Wiggins, George Knapp himself, Dylan Borland, and who I forget who that last guy is. He was mostly there as a advocate for whistleblowers in general. He wasn't really a UFO advocate, but he was on board with the whole thing. So House lawmakers urge Congress to pass proposed legislation and pursue further actions to shield whistleblowers with information about unidentified anomalous phenomenon from any retaliation after current and former U.S. military officials shared new details about their alleged encounters on active duty with baffling orbs and craft that appeared to eclipse existing weapons and technology. What we saw changed our lives, the way we think about everything. It was incredibly profound, Air Force veteran Jeff Nuccetelli said. He provided testimony on Tuesday alongside other military veterans and oversight experts at the first UAP-focused hearing convened by the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee's Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets. In general, we need more, stronger protections for everyone as a whole, but there is a different case in point for UAP whistleblowers specifically. Anna Paulina Luna, who chairs that task force, told Defense Scoop after the hearing, the U.S. government has a turbulent history associated with its handling of data and reports about UAP, a modern term for UFOs that accounts for transmedium objects and records documenting those incidents. Pursuits to compel more transparency and oversight have continued to emerge over the last several years, largely due to mounting public pressure and congressional mandates. At a high level, the Pentagon's mechanisms to study what it now refers to as UAP have taken different forms over the decades. The most recent iteration, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARROW, was set up under the Biden administration in 2022 to fulfill a mandate from the National Defense Authorization Act. ARROW achieved full operational capacity in 2024. Since its inception, government officials have been secretive about the office's projects and caseload of dozens of open investigations. Luna is part of a small group of policymakers who have been steadily prioritizing whistleblower hearings, public engagement sessions, and other legislative efforts to promote more accountability and disclosure from the intelligence community and other government agencies regarding UAP. The prior hearings were under committees of different jurisdiction, and so you're seeing that there's a massive bipartisan support for this, specifically in this task force, she told Defense Scoop, and will continue to turn over and flip over the rocks. The panel of witnesses who testified on Tuesday shed new light on some previously reported UAP incidents observed near military assets and installations and presented new allegations of secrecy and retaliation. Nuccetelli, a former police officer who served 16 years in the Air Force, pointed to multiple UAP incursions between 2023 and 2025 near Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. The installation is now known as Vandenberg Space Force Base. When officials were conducting high-stakes launches for the National Reconnaissance Office, according to Nuccetelli, massive objects that appeared like flying buildings approached military personnel and pulsed and moved in strange ways. Like a big red object the size of a football field came over an airfield in Vandenberg, and like hundreds of airmen saw it, apparently. Like, it was a big event. He asked lawmakers to fund independent research for UAP and end secrecy and overclassification across the government. Each incident was witnessed by multiple personnel, documented, investigated, and reported up the chain of command. We sent information up, but we got no guidance down on how to handle these events, he said. Another Air Force veteran who testified for the first time on Tuesday, Dylan Borland, who I think was one of the most interesting, told lawmakers he faced severe retaliation after coming forward about his alleged experience with a UAP at Langley Air Force Base in 2012 and related information he uncovered in its aftermath. And I believe he is one of the individuals who has had direct experience with this technology. Like, he's been in the room with it, he's seen it operate, and his life has been a living hell because of it. Because of my direct knowledge of the reality of certain legacy UAP programs, my professional career was deliberately obstructed, and I have endured sustained reprisals from government agencies for more than a decade, Borland said, alleging that he was subject to workplace harassment, efforts to undermine his ability to be employed for classified work, and other forms of mistreatment. Notably, Tuesday's hearing also marked the first time an active duty Navy official testified publicly before Congress about an incident involving UAP. So that was really significant. And I think this is one of the most significant things about this hearing, because apparently Alex Wiggins is a current active duty Navy officer, and he has the full backing from his Navy colleagues and his command about testifying before Congress about this incident, which really sparked some interesting questions about the relationship that the Air Force has with this technology and the relationship that the Navy has with this technology. And I think that's pretty indicative of something. First time active duty for Congress, Chief Petty Officer Alexander Wiggins, who has 23 years of service, spoke in a personal capacity at the hearing about an incident that occurred in 2023 while he was serving aboard the USS Jackson. What I observed and what our crew recorded was not consistent with conventional aircraft or drones as they appear on our system. A self-luminous tic-tac shaped object emerged from the ocean before linking up with three other similar objects. The orb then disappeared simultaneously with a high synchronized near instantaneous acceleration, Wiggins told lawmakers. He said there was no sonic boom or conventional propulsion signatures, but the objects were detected on multiple sensors, including radar. To be clear, I am not here to make claims beyond my lane, Wiggins said. I am here to provide a first-hand account of what I saw, what our systems recorded, and why it matters for safety, for intelligence, and public confidence. He urged Congress to impel sensor standardization and personnel training to ensure the best data can be captured by the Navy in real time. Wiggins also asked the lawmakers to reinforce witness protection efforts and encourage the military to maintain confidential, destigmatized channels for UAP reports and associated data. Sailors need to know that reporting UAP encounters will not harm their careers, Wiggins said. During the hearing, Eric Burleson unveiled video footage publicly for the first time that he said showed a U.S. military MQ-9 drone firing a Hellfire missile at a high-speed orb off the coast of Yemen in October 2024. The UAP appeared to be hit but not destroyed. So we are going to check out that video right now.
Been given. And as before it starts, I'm going to describe, this was taken October 30th of 2024. This video is of an MQ-9 drone tracking an orb, or this object, off the coast of Yemen. You'll see that another MQ-9 launched a Hellfire missile. That you cannot see that drone, and so I'm not going to explain it to you. You'll see exactly what it does. This is when it zoomed out.
Yeah, so
you can still see it traveling.
All right, I'm going to back this up a little bit so you could kind of see what happened here. So that's the orb. That's the orb that it's locked onto right now. It's flying across the ocean or whatever. And then a Hellfire missile comes on in and hits it, and it does some weird shit where it floats in the air. It's got like 3 orbs floating behind it, and then the camera zooms out, and that thing is still going. It's still going. It's fine. It just, and it like absorbed whatever it impacted from the Hellfire missile. And basically these guys were asked during the thing, after watching that footage, they're like, yeah, that's pretty scary if that's real. You know, not much can survive a Hellfire missile, a direct hit with a Hellfire missile. So it kept going, and it looked like the debris was taken with it. Burleson said, I'm not going to speculate what it is, but the question is, why are we being blocked from this information? That's the real question. Other witnesses on the panel, UAP journalist George Knapp and Joe Spielberger, who serves as senior policy counsel at the Project on Government Oversight, also called for Congress to continue its push for investigations and legislation to spark more transparency. The secret is out. I mean, how many videos of UAP have there been? And in an interview Monday ahead of the hearing, Spielberger noted that he hoped it would restart serious bipartisan conversations to strengthen disclosure channels and protections for all national security whistleblowers. And that is, you know, that's such a great point that the UFO subject is one of the most bipartisan subjects we have right now. So we'll see what happens with that. The misdeeds that they expose can often have a direct impact on public safety, civil liberties, and the security of our country. That makes them incredibly important to keeping our government accountable. When they speak up and do the right thing, the American people benefit, Spielberger told Defense Scoop. So that happened, and then almost right after that, Matt Laszlo caught Burchett walking on his way to something in DC, and he got a snippet from him about the subject. So let's see what Burchett has to say.
What if these are entities that are here on this earth, that have been on this earth, that, who knows how long, and that we, you know, we think they're coming in from way out. Maybe they did millennia ago, but they're here and they're in these deep water areas. And that's why, I mean, like we say, we know more about the face of the moon than we do what's going on there. And we have a higher propensity of sightings around these 5 or 6, I believe, deep water areas. And so to me, it just, it creates a question there. And then when we have naval personnel telling me that we have these sightings and that there's these underwater craft they're chasing that are doing hundreds of miles an hour, and the best we've got is something that does maybe just a little under 40 miles an hour. So I got a lot of questions about that stuff.
So what he seems to be suggesting there is that there might be something pointing to 5 or 6 locations under the ocean where these things might find their home. And they might have been here for a very, very long time and just been watching us. So as far as the whistleblower hearing goes, though, you know, this follows up with the previous hearing, which had Admiral Tim Gallaudet, and I'm blanking on who else was there with that, but he was an admiral. He had a good presentation, but I feel like this and David Grush's first conference that they had with him, these were the most impactful, especially with George Knapp up there helping these guys out on stage, like basically guiding them through this because for a lot of these guys up there, well, except for Spielberger, they've never done anything like this. They've never sat in front of cameras in public and announced anything. In fact, their whole job was to not do this, to not do anything like this, to make sure everything was classified and hold on to classified information. So, it was good to see George Knapp up there. I know some people were worried because he's just a journalist, but he's been in this subject for 39 years, and he definitely helped with the flow of everything and explaining core points that needed to be explained. But most importantly, he submitted what he was able to smuggle out of Russia at the collapse of the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union collapsed, George Knapp went over there and smuggled out these papers that basically described the Russian government's strategy with UFOs and their experiences with UFOs, what happened over there, and the programs that they developed for them, because apparently they had their own back engineering program for these things that basically crashed over there.
The general gist of it seems to be, at least from my point of view on this, is, and I mean, it's pretty standard for governments, especially the Soviet government at the time, that they were looking at this from the exact same standpoint we would look at it from today, but more so even then.
Yeah.
Which is, if we can figure out these secrets, we win.
Yes.
And that is what, in fact, one of the generals here even says, basically, if we can figure this out, we'll pull ahead and then we'll win.
Yeah. Basically what they determined was that this was some sort of technology, and if they could figure out what the technology was, they would have the upper hand in the Cold War. And so he hasn't actually put these documents out in public yet. They're not publicly accessible, but he has submitted them to the DIA and OSAP and to Congress now. And so he describes things like at least 40 instances of, these MiG fighters, these jet fighters that the Soviets had, encounters in the sky with these things, sometimes even clipping their wings a little bit. And then, there's actual ground force engagement, dozens of cases where they've disabled vehicles, radar, radio. It's all the same stuff. The personnel were literally frozen or immobilized when attempting to shoot. It's all a very, very similar plot line to what we've experienced over here. Now, could this all just be like Russian fan fiction or something like that? Maybe. Inspired, but it seems, if it's Russian fan fiction, it seems to be entirely inspired by American UFO propaganda, which is just, I don't know, that would be a weird angle. And apparently the most famous incident it describes is the 1982 ICBM incident in Ukraine. I guess they were at this nuclear missile silo, and they're monitoring the ICBMs. And
well, it sounds like they were at one of their, like you said, a missile facility.
Yeah,
not dissimilar from NORAD or something
right.
that we have. And this is an older facility, back in 1982. So basically, what happened is this thing popped out, and according to this extraordinary maneuvers, it was like dancing around in front of them, basically, and because it's an older system and this thing popped up, it hit all of the check boxes, saying we're going, we spotted something, and we're gonna fire these things off. Yeah, and the operators apparently couldn't even stop them because this was all set. It hit all the boxes. We're going. Yeah, and they luckily right before it went out, which is also a thing to take into account because it happened. It must have known that the countdown was happening. Yeah. And then it took off. Yeah. Which also allowed the operators then to
shut it down.
To shut everything down.
Yeah. Yeah. And they basically interpreted this as a message from the UFO to basically stop screwing around with nukes. And also there was some alien weapon, a plasma beam generator modeled after UFO tech. But, basically it's all the same kind of stuff that we've been experiencing over here. So with all this taken into account, with all these things being presented before you, what do you think about all this stuff, Billy? Do you finally believe in aliens? Are aliens real now?
No, aliens are not
aliens
real
are
now.
not.
However, there are things you can pull from. I mean, and there was a lot that we just went over, so
We did.
I'm gonna have to hit this in pieces.
Yeah.
Like this last piece that we did.
Yeah.
One of the things that was brought up were energy weapons. They said that they disabled aircraft sometimes through just electromagnetic disturbances.
Yeah.
Basically the whole craft just shut down. That's ahead of its time.
Yeah.
For a weapon of that, of that time. And it said that it would, that also works on people.
Yeah.
So, one of the things they said is sometimes like soldiers would see these things and fire at it, and then, or they wouldn't fire at all. They would point their gun and just stop.
Yeah.
And which is almost creepy. It's creepier, actually.
Yeah.
And when, they went up to these, they were basically petrified.
Yeah.
And, that is actually one of the things that you might consider seeing if they just had an electrical overload, because we actually, as everyone knows, we run on electricity as well, basically.
Right. Yeah. And it would cause an adrenaline spike after that, right?
Not just, well, no, like, I mean, a big electrical overload, like you would stop.
Oh,
You may not freeze.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Enough electrical overload, you could like stun someone.
Yeah, you could basically stun someone, and then they're
frozen.
Frozen.
Oh, that's an interesting
Yeah,
angle on that.
especially if you got their muscles and everything right, like they're not moving.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility.
Yeah.
because it's definitely ahead of that time for that kind of weapon. The other thing that I wanted to hit on was with the gentleman in that little 1 minute video that we had.
Yes.
Said, basically they've been here.
Yeah.
From his point of view, that's kind of what it's looking like. They may have come from somewhere else, but that could have been millennia ago.
Yeah, that could have been a long time ago.
And they've just been sitting in the deep oceans, or, I mean, they probably didn't even have to hide that well.
No.
500 years ago, 300 years ago.
No, the deep ocean is the perfect environment for them to.
Well,
hide in.
I'm just saying, like, right now, the deep ocean is a great place for them to hide.
Yeah.
We don't typically look there.
No.
But 300 years ago, you wouldn't even had to hide that well.
No.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you could just like hide up in mountains.
Yeah. A cloud. Done.
Yeah.
But now the deep oceans is a pretty good one. Like he said, and I agree. Everybody agrees that knows about it. We know less about what's down there, and the conditions down there than we do about our moon and space in general, almost.
Yeah.
So it's a great place to hide.
Yeah.
I do think that there could be something down there, and with the way that they talk about how they move.
Yeah.
See, one of the things that we have a problem with is we have to physically deal with it down there.
Yeah.
But they seem to bypass a lot of that.
Yeah.
And not only that, the way that they say that they move, where it's like they don't cause any ripples.
Yeah.
It's like the deep ocean would be a good place for that too, because it's like, it's a dense, highly pressurized atmosphere.
Yeah.
And you don't have to like move through it really. You're just kind of gliding through it in whatever way that they actually do.
Yeah.
And you probably also don't have to worry about depressurizing, which is what happened to the Titan submersible.
And that's the thing. That's what gets me about the ocean, is that it just makes so much sense for that to be like a normalized environment for your craft to be in, because like, theoretically there's probably multiple different worlds with an ocean somewhere around our temperature.
Not just our temperature, but like,
it can be made of different stuff too.
The pressure, it can be made of different stuff. It's the pressures, really.
Yeah.
And truthfully, our ocean, compared to a lot of planets that could be out there, is not deep.
Yeah.
No. Just comparatively, it's deep. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But comparatively to others, like the pressures that you can get on other planets,
oh god,
it's nowhere even close.
Yeah.
So if they were climatized, they'll say, to somewhere else that's like way deeper, way worse.
Yeah.
Even a gas giant.
Yeah.
yeah, they could easily go into our oceans and survive there.
And coincidentally enough, I was just watching this video where they were explaining that, like, they were like, could a submarine survive in space, like as a spacecraft? Like, if you just popped it into space, could it survive? And the answer is actually yes. The reason why it would fail is because its nuclear reactors need water for its process.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it would survive until you would survive for however long you could survive with that process.
Yeah.
Going.
You know, and the thing is, like, I don't think it's. I mean, the space stuff is costly, but so is a submarine.
Yes.
You know, a new, fully done out nuclear submarine is like $2 billion.
Yeah.
You know, they're very expensive for a lot of the same reasons that a space craft is expensive. They have to be sealed properly. They're especially if they're military, they add all the stealth stuff in, which is highly costly every time you do it. You know, so it's there's a lot there for it. I think that there is mounting stuff happening. You know, people are presenting new files,
and I do think we are going to see some crazy shit happen regarding this, because sitting in there was like a Hollywood director, and there is like 2 Hollywood huge UFO films, in the pipeline. There's this Age of Disclosure film, which, I guess Netflix might be trying to buy. Maybe, we don't know that information yet. And then the Disclosure film by Steven Spielberg coming out in like 2026 or 27 or something like that. And then Colin Trevorrow, of the director of the new Jurassic World series, was sitting behind all the whistleblowers this time around. So I think somebody's been tipped off, and not just that, but recently on Reddit, well, you could trust Reddit, but on our UFOs, there was a not a whistleblower, like an insider thing where they write up like the 4chan whistleblower, where it's, you can't really verify it. It's just a guy, but basically he was saying that, there is some sort of internal clandestine opposition happening between Team Black and Team Blue, where some people that are involved in these highly classified programs are operating simply without any oversight, and they're just taking advantage of their classifications. And they're basically considered Team Black. Yeah. And then Team Blue are the people that got the classified security clearances because they want to be, they want to serve their country. They want to serve their country.
You could say that.
You could say that.
They could also just be like, I want to know about the aliens.
Yeah, they could just be like, I want to know about the aliens. But basically, the guys that, are not trying to fuck us over, and he's saying that there is a ton of push for the Team Blue now, and Team Black is dwindling, and they've basically got them cornered at this point, and disclosure is going to happen. Like these companies have to come out with this exotic tech to be exposed to the public. Like it's going to happen in some capacity.
So let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
This is an odd question.
Yeah.
So say it comes out, that is in fact what they've been doing. They've been reverse engineering things that they found. Do you think they should be able to keep all the profits from stuff like that?
See, and I think this is actually the core argument with all of this. This is the core dark Dick Cheney.
That's like why I'm asking.
The deepest layer of hell. Like that.
Where's the money?
I'm going to tell you the mindset is. I do believe the current mindset is these individuals believe because their company made it. It is and this line of logic, it makes sense. It makes sense that because they've created this technology and they have all these patents on this technology, it is their technology. It is not anyone else's technology. It is their proprietary technology.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, when you develop a spacecraft that is leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else, it's not like you can say that's your technology, but only as long as you can hide it. And that's kind of what's happening here. And it's just the inevitability of it all. It's just going to be shit out. The toothpaste is going to come out of the tube.
Yeah.
Is basically what's going to happen.
Yeah. So do you think that they, like I said, do you really think they should be able to keep profiting from that?
Oh, I definitely think that companies should have their own proprietary technology that they're allowed to develop and make profits off of.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is they believe like spacecraft conceptually belong to them. That's
Yeah,
that's the Dick Cheney logic. We invented the space, like the Disney, like you can only get this experience with us.
Yeah.
It's that kind of logic. You can only get spacecraft but you can't get any of the spacecraft.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of, again, like what I'm getting at is, do you really think that, like, the spacecraft obviously wasn't theirs?
Yeah.
They were the only ones given the ability to do anything with it.
Right. And that's the thing. It's not, and this is what George Knapp was repeatedly saying in the hearing, it's not actually their fault. It's the way that all of this was set up, that only these specific contractors can even touch this technology. It's just now because you've granted them this superpower. Now, obviously, an entire cartel has spawned from it because there's just you didn't build any oversight into it. You know what I mean? So now, like, it wasn't really their fault in the beginning. They were just kind of doing what they thought was best, but then it kind of ran away, got out of control. Probably a lot of discussions about, well, if other people have this technology, it'll be the end of the world, stuff like that. But I don't know. What do you think, Billy?
I think they should have to hand over their patents.
I think they should definitely have to hand over their patents regarding the kind of stuff that gets a vehicle from Earth to Mars in less than a day. That kind of patents they got to hand over. They got to be like, you're done. You don't own that.
I don't just mean those. I mean, like, anything that you derive from technology that obviously wasn't part.
Oh, you mean from like an extraterrestrial thing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I agree with that. If they can somehow prove that they got this technology or whatever from extraterrestrials, and like that's legit where it came from, they gotta hand that shit over. They can't just hoard that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I was getting at, because the context of our thing here is saying disclosure happened.
So I think it's a lot more complicated than that. I think what it really looked like, and they may have come up, and I like with Philip Corso the day after Roswell, they may have been able to come up with a handful of technology based off of this tech, like fiber optic stuff like that. But for the most part, it remained a mystery, this technology. And I think it's mostly inspired clandestine science to look in that direction rather than them actually. I do think that they actually recovered craft from where I don't know, and I think they tried to back engineer it, but I think they've only been able to really vaguely copy it so far. They may have legit working models right now though, but I think realistically they've only gotten it to be nowhere near what the stuff that they found can do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of agree with that. Because otherwise we should be seeing more stuff of a more serious nature.
Yeah.
More often. But one of the things I also have a question for you for here then is why, like, that incident you mentioned in California, where like some football
field size,
thing came down.
Yeah.
Why don't you, like, don't get me wrong, you hear about things all over the world, like something happened.
Yeah.
But generally it's not like, one of these things appears in a city.
Yeah.
Because think about it. Like if you were going to a new place.
Yeah.
You're a tourist.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, I'm looking around.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
How come you don't just normally see these things like cruising through the sky?
Oh, you mean objects like this?
Yeah.
Or, no. Well, number one, they're in remote areas.
Okay.
Mostly in remote areas. Number two, honestly, I really I don't think a lot of people spend time looking up into the stars when they have the chance, because if you do, you will occasionally see some pretty strange stuff. Just every now and then it'll happen. Those are UFOs, unidentified flying objects, because you can't identify them. I'm not saying they're all aliens. We don't know what they are. But I have thought in this direction a lot, like, well, how does the individual approach this subject? I feel like there's 3 or 4 different types of people, different personalities when it comes to UFOs. There's people who just absolutely could not give less of a fuck about the subject at all. They are not interested at all. It's like, okay, whatever, fine. Then there's people who don't have an opinion at all. They just don't know. They don't really know anything about it. But if you talk to them about it, if you can talk to them about it, if you can get them on the subject for briefly, they will talk about it, and they might perk up and be a little interested in it.
Yeah.
And then there is the anti-UFO people, which, to me, if you're genuinely anti-UFO, I just interpret that as you're like afraid of UFOs or something like that, or you're a government shill. Those exist too. Now it's not all neat categories, but that's basically the spread of what you're looking at when it comes to UFOs in the general public. And then the fourth category is the believers. Yeah,
you forgot your group there.
Then there's the and that can be broken down into so it's 4 categories, and that one can be broken down into like pure believers or people who are trying to sift through the bullshit. So it's more like 5 categories, I guess you could say. Now, these guys that would be out on this airfield in Vandenberg, from how I've heard this described when these events happen in military installations, most of the guys will immediately assume that is some military test and we're not allowed to talk about it. So that's like 75% chunk off right there. They're just not going to talk about that at all. They're going to go right back inside. Yeah. Then the remaining percent will be like Jeff Nuccetelli, like, wait a minute, we have to like report that. We have to like, I'm an officer, I have to report this to somebody. Somebody's got to know that this happened. That's a safety violation. You can't have a giant red football field hanging over an airfield. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when those guys look for answers, they are not only immediately shut down, they are put into positions where they are ridiculed, or it's made uncomfortable for them to talk about it. Yeah. So it really just comes down to that. That's really what's going to happen, is that a small handful of people will feel compelled enough to want to pursue it, even though it's like an airfield violation. You know what I mean? Like how, like,
yeah,
it's just so weird to me that a bunch of people can just be like, not going to ask about that, But I mean, it makes sense in a certain way.
It does make sense in a certain way, especially if you're thinking about your career.
Yeah.
He'd, like a lot of these people said, it could tank your career.
Yes.
So it becomes one of those things where that this order came from somewhere on high, but
Yeah.
who knows where,
Yeah.
and that the active directive is that never happened.
Yeah.
And, if you go against that directive, good luck. It's probably not going to get you anywhere either.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what happened to Tim Gallaudet. A very similar incident to Jeff Nuccetelli. I think it was a smaller UFO, though. And then he tried to look for it on their classified internet for the Navy that they have for like a couple hours or an hour or something, and then it was gone. It was, or it might have been almost instantly deleted. I forget how long it was up there, but Gallaudet thought that they would address it at a future meeting or something, like something would be, and he asked about it, and everybody was just like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah. So like that, you know. And the reason why I think that disclosure at this point is inevitable, some kind of disclosure. I'm not saying full disclosure. You're not getting aliens. Billy's here. We're never getting aliens, but at least interstellar spacecraft. Come on. That's the deal. And the reason why I think we are going to at least get interstellar spacecraft disclosure is because of the kind of harassment that we can see for individuals like Dylan Borland. Dylan Borland and David Grush. And that's the other thing that happened, is that David Grush recently got his security clearance back, and then as he was on his way to a skiff, an individual brandished a weapon at him in some context. So that happened. And then you have Dylan Borland, which he basically faced severe retaliation. Like he had people stalking him, coming after his house, doing weird stuff to him, phishing his identity. All this weird stuff happened to him, and basically they're trying to ruin his life. And I feel like if this stuff wasn't real, why would you have something like this happen, where people are trying to ruin whistleblowers' lives? If there's just nothing to this stuff.
It could be for the sake of them being whistleblowers, but I'm not saying that's a strong argument either.
What, they're just like generally talking?
Yeah, the fact that it's like the whole point of you being in a place that you could have accessed this information was that you were supposed to keep your mouth shut, and you're not doing that. Yeah,
but like, okay, so my argument against that is when it's just that.
Yeah.
Then
I'm not saying I am saying the U.S. government could be petty.
Yeah,
that's what I am saying.
I feel like when it's just that, then your supervisors can crack down on
you. Yeah.
When it's whistleblowing like this, like someone somewhere knows what they're doing is morally fucked.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get you to shut up about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I can't, like, if it was just like general whistleblowing, like they have this technology over here, and the government's like, yeah, we know they do, then I feel like your supervisor would crack down on you, and you would just get like court-martial or something. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's weird. The whole thing is weird, but I do think we are going to get some answers out of it. The UFO subject has come along incredibly far since before 2017, where there was just...
So here, I'm going to ask you another one of these off-base UFO questions.
Okay.
All right. Disclosure happens.
Yeah.
And not only just disclosure for technology, but there may even be beings behind this to some degree.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are we on the totem pole then?
Yeah, that's the other argument that they've been talking about, is that what if the whole reason why we don't have disclosure is because humans aren't supposed to know that there's somebody higher up on the totem pole?
Well, I don't just mean like, because I hate the argument, by the way.
What?
Even as someone that doesn't like that, it's like if you've seen the movies Men in Black, right?
Yeah.
All of the aliens in that movie know about all the other aliens.
Right, like Harry Potter.
Except for humans.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it can't just be that way. Like,
so it could be something along the lines of they just think we're monkeys with nukes, like violent monkeys.
Because that's the thing about the totem pole that I'm getting at, is like, are we some like subspecies of like, because that's what it's getting at that point.
Listen, if our gut reaction after developing the technology to make a spacecraft is the monkeys are now going to patent it, hide it away, and claim it's theirs specifically, and none of the other monkeys can have it.
Yeah,
then we're monkeys then.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I can't fight that.
Then we're monkeys then. Yeah.
Because I have, that's one of the big reasons I absolutely hate this whole thing to begin with. Is it's like there's so much out there. There's so much better that we could do as a species, as humanity, and no, it happens. It's like, where's the money, and how do I make the most of it?
Yeah,
and where's the power and control?
Yeah, what's the meta?
Well, yeah, and it's stop.
And that's, I feel like that it like just from playing WoW, just from playing World of Warcraft, every now and then when you're in Stormwind or Orgrimmar, you see one of those players. And you know what I'm talking about. One of those players with an eye level that you didn't think was even possible to hit, with legendaries you didn't even think existed on.
Mm-hmm.
And like min-max to the absolute max. Like, and it's not just like one individual who's like that. There's a bunch of people who are like that. More than a bunch.
Yeah.
And just from playing WoW, I know that these people exist. These min-maxers. These guys that just play the most meta that you can meta.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's who scooped the cream off the top of the UFO subject back in like the 40s, in the late 40s. And those guys, those meta min-maxers, have just been riding their flying saucers away from us for the past 80 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And yeah, like almost like an Elysium type, like as we've mentioned, like a separate group of people almost, that it's just like they have all those technologies that we've heard of.
Like, you can't just be happy on a farm,
right,
with goats and stuff.
And we're not saying you have to go that basic either, but it's like
not medieval, just like
like like if that is enjoyable to you and you find happiness, like, why not? Just it's not bad. But anyway, that was one.
And what I mean by that is, what I'm trying to get at is, like, there is a segment of humans who desire to dominate other humans.
Oh yes,
that is their goal.
Yeah,
their goal is to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
one of the reasons I worry about like capitalism and whatnot is it draws those people in.
Yeah,
and they've shown like the amount of psychopaths and stuff at the highest reaches of like,
oh yeah, it's all psychopaths and sociopaths.
Yeah,
which is like, I feel like the AI revolution is cutting that class out of society. It is replacing all CEOs with AI robots. Like, replace all CEOs with AIs, and we'll get rid of all the sociopaths, and then put them all in prison.
I have one other thing here. I don't know if it's its own episode, maybe later.
Yeah.
But, you mentioned a whole bunch of reasons for, disclosure.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons that we would get for disclosure is AI.
Oh, yeah.
And because it's like, it has the ability to see patterns that we cannot.
Yeah. And this could be an entire episode, but we'll touch on it here. My theory behind this is that, eventually you're going to have so many people asking AI about these questions. I know I do. And like, every time you do, like, sometimes it'll come up with really good answers, and then other times it'll block you from answering those things. And we know these algorithms are being tweaked. We know this information is being altered in AI, and it makes me wonder that, they invent AI, they give it to the public, and the public starts asking questions about a lot of different things, and they need to keep trimming the AI more and more and more until, every question about these things that they don't want the public to know the answer to is trimmed off that tree. And it's like, so what happens there? So I really feel like this is going to be a scenario where it's like, we're either going to get UFO disclosure, or they are going to have to neuter all AI and put us into like a class system.
Yeah, and we talked about that one before.
Yeah.
And I kind of agree with it. And
yeah,
I think that is actually something we're seeing now.
Yeah, I think it's being attempted. I think
because you get these, these Chat GPT releases and all these things where it's like
GPT 5 is like terrible.
Yeah. And it's like, don't get me wrong, you could have a terrible release.
Right.
You could.
It could just fucked up.
But I think a lot of what we're seeing a lot of the times is like with the Google algorithm that searches the internet for us.
Yeah.
They're basically, it's not improving the algorithm that they're doing. They're trimming away all of the things that they see as unnecessary and that you don't need to know about in the background.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And, also, Google VO3 just got integrated into Riverside FM. So we're going to have to check that out.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty neat. We use Riverside FM for this. All right. But I think we're going to call our episode there for now.
Good episode.
See you next time, guys.